Прошу вас, рассаживайтесь. Меня зовут Станислав Наумов, я заведующий кафедрой философии нашего университета. Мы только что провели круглый стол совместно с коллегами из Института философии Российской академии наук, поэтому наш докладчик Роб Ван Краненбург, он хорошо потренировался, поотвечал на вопросы. Мы уверены в том, что и в этой аудитории каждый из вас вправе задать свои вопросы Робу. Но начнем мы с презентации, да? 2 секунды для того, чтобы ее загрузить. Я пока коротко 3 своих вывода о теме, с которой сегодня Роб выступает, попробую озвучить. Очень много будет уделяться внимания вопросам отношений, которые возникают в процессе взаимодействия человека и машины. И очень много вопросов, связанных с оценкой искусственного интеллекта. Очень интересные возникают вопросы, а что такое мораль, что такое нравственность в подобного рода процессах. Один из очень важных выводов, который сделали вот только что участники круглого стола, состоит в том, что было бы большой ошибкой делегировать машине хотя бы долю того, что мы называем моральной ответственностью за свои решения. Наоборот, чем выше роль машин как таковых в процессе деятельности человека, тем выше мера персональной ответственности того человека, который с этими машинами взаимодействует. Это первый вывод, который вот мы сумели сделать. Второй вывод, очень интересный, связан с развитием системы «Умный город». Smart City, City Next. И один из вопросов, которые задавали на круглом столе, был вопрос о том, что лучше развивать. Город, где большие формы контроля, или город, где большие формы доверия. Для нас с вами этот вопрос, как ни странно, не праздный. То, что сейчас будет происходить в Сочи, это отчасти наша версия, национальная версия ответа на этот вопрос, но в рамках глобального мероприятия. Поэтому будем следить за Олимпийскими играми не только с точки зрения спортивных соревнований, но и с точки зрения формата, что такое город контроля и город доверия. И третья очень важная мысль, которая тоже прозвучала благодаря вопросу Янины Булгаковой, преподавателя нашей кафедры. Это связан вопрос с воспитанием детей. Вопрос, почему, если несколько еще лет назад, может быть, десятилетий назад, дети развивались в такой традиционной физической среде, то сейчас в основном это развитие происходит в рамках информационных технологий, к чему это приводит. Я позволю себе просто дать предваряющий вариант ответа, что, конечно же, инвестиции в информационные технологии оказались более доступными, чем те инвестиции, которые еще предстоит сделать в те системы, которые должны быть созданы на базе виртуальных систем. Наверное, это следующий шаг развития. И я очень надеюсь, что студенты нашего университета, аспиранты нашего университета вот этим вот новым гибридным системам, которые будут развиртуализировать пространство человеческого творчества, человеческой активности, игры, посвятят свои работы. Янина, готова презентация? Потому что я могу еще минут 40 рассказывать, но я не являюсь главным докладчиком. Да, я вижу, первая страница уже готова. Yes. Итак, давайте поприветствуем Роба Ван Краненбург, интернет вещей.
Thank you, Stanislav. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited and honored to be here. I will stick to the text. So this is quite unnatural for me because I like to talk and sort of. But let's talk later in the questions. For now, I think I'm gonna sort of stick to the text.
Большое спасибо за то, что вы все сегодня здесь собрались. Для меня это большая честь. Я буду давать лекцию близко к тексту, по тексту. Для меня это не очень обычно, потому что я люблю увлекаться разговором. Но потом, после лекции, вы можете задать вопросы, и тогда мы сможем свободно пообщаться.
So, what is at stake? Basically, it's about agency. And this agency is here, and I believe it's strong, and I also believe that looking at all of you here. So startups and very young companies such as Apple, Facebook, Google are piggybacking on old structures, rapidly getting more powerful by the day. We can also understand what's going on. Not only that, we can also understand what this new power looks like and where the real fight is.
Итак, что же поставлено на карту? Действующая сила, она уже присутствует, и она очень мощная. Я могу это с уверенностью сказать, глядя на всех вас. Стартап-компании и компании, как Apple, Facebook, Google, они развиваются усиленными темпами и становятся с каждым днем все более влиятельными. Тем не менее, и мы можем понять, что происходит, и каким образом выглядит власть завтрашнего дня. А также мы можем понять, где ведется настоящая борьба.
So the real fight is between a view of man and mankind, and whoever wins will rule for a long time. A long time in this day and age is like maybe, let's say, 20, 30 years, maybe 40. But maybe even so long that other stories and other views on what life is will become a fairy tale or folklore. This fight is also no longer a battlefield fight. It's no longer military in the old sense. It's not only economic, it's basically about understanding where the agency lies in this space of flows, as it's called.
Настоящая борьба ведется между представлением отдельного человека и человечества в целом. И та сторона, которая одержит победу в этой борьбе, будет править долгое время, возможно, настолько долгое, что все прочие рассказы и все прочие представления о том, что такое жизнь и почему стоит жить, будут рассматриваться как сказки, как фольклор. В настоящее время борьба уже не ведется на поле боя. И это не экономическая борьба в старом смысле этого слова. Борьба заключается в том, кто понимает лучше, где лежит действующая сила в пространстве потоков.
So what's that fight? I would say it's a fight for the soul of man and the soul of how humans organize in society. So at this moment, Internet of Things is fueled by an efficiency-based logic, Silicon Valley profit motive, technology push. It does not have to be that way. So it can be different, and the way that it can be different is what we are here to discuss. Of course, we all like efficiency, we all like convenience, but there's a difference between those being the only drivers and something else.
Что же представляет собой эта борьба? Я бы сказала, что это борьба за душу человека и за дух того, каким образом люди организованы в сообществе. В данный момент интернет вещей питается логикой рентабельности, основанной на мотивах выгоды в духе Силиконовой долины, а также технологическими скачками вперед. Так не должно быть, может быть и по-другому. И именно это я хотел бы обсудить сегодня с вами. Я не хочу сказать, что эффективность полностью отрицательное понятие, но нельзя, чтобы система была сориентирована только на эти ценности.
But it's here to stay, and there's no way around that. It's an accumulation of all engineering decisions that have been made for a very, very long time, from the history of tooling, and for those who read Heidegger, from the notion of techne. So in the last century, we had it as pervasive computing, ubiquitous computing, intelligent information interfaces, things that think, ambient intelligence. And this iteration as Internet of Things is not new, but it's the term that Kevin Ashton thought up in 1999, and it's now the most neutral, sort of the most neutral term for basically what is going on, all this connectivity that's gearing up.
Все, что мы имеем, оно останется с нами. Невозможно просто взять и обойти это. Это накопление всех инженерных решений, взятых из истории инструментов, используемых человеком. В прошедшем веке мы разговаривали про вездесущую компьютеризацию, всепроникающую компьютеризацию, про вещи, которые думают, интеллектуальные интерфейсы, окружающий разум. Таким образом, понятие интернет вещей не является совершенно новым. И именно термин, который Кевин Эштон придумал в 1999 году, интернет вещей, является наиболее приемлемым в настоящее время.
So these terms are important because Internet of Things is sort of the most neutral term. And now, as I think if you've been following Internet of Things a little bit, you feel that it's exploding all around us. Everything and everywhere now across the planet is like Internet of Things. But it's still the most neutral term. But of course now the companies are coming with their own ideas. So General Electric is calling it Industrial Internet. Cisco is calling it Internet of Everything. IBM is calling it Smarter Planet. It's basically all the same. But it's important to know that if you use these terms, that you're basically sponsoring a company. So there's nothing wrong with that. So if Cisco pays you, then you say Internet of Everything. But if Cisco doesn't pay you, it doesn't make sense to say Internet of Everything because it's simply marketing for them and you don't get anything out of it. The German industry is looking at it because of their smart manufacturing, and they call it Industry 4.0. Angela Merkel is a chemist, so she's also very much knowledgeable about engineering, and I think this really is also a key factor to that success.
Термины очень важны. Интернет вещей — наиболее нейтральный термин. Есть множество компаний, которые продвигают какие-то свои идеи и называют интернет вещей другими словами. Например, General Electric продвигает industrial интернет, промышленный интернет. Cisco продвигает Internet of Everything, всеохватывающий интернет. Разумеется, если эта компания вам платит, нет ничего плохого в том, что вы занимаетесь продвижением этого термина. Но если они прекратят вам платить, больше не будет иметь смысла заниматься этим продвижением. Немецкая промышленность смотрит на интернет вещей с целью занять господствующее положение в производстве смарт-продукции. Канцлер Германии Ангела Меркель по профессии химик и очень много знает об инжиниринге. Разумеется, благодаря этому Германия является успешной в этой сфере.
So basically, we know that the internet started as a military system, sort of basically because the military wanted. Is this on, by the way? Okay, can you hear me if I talk like this? Good. So the internet started. So the internet started as a military system to withstand attacks. A federation of testbeds, an open line. So the idea was, if one was hit, all the data would also be in the other systems. So that's why you got to have this open line. Later built into TCP/IP, design decision, not a necessity. Academic coders got onto it, put email on it. Then Tim Berners-Lee in 2003 put the web on it. www, HTML, and he open sourced it, which was totally a fluke. normally he would have patented it, and we would not have a World Wide Web. We would have had like 10 webs, and we had to pay one web to another web. But Tim Berners-Lee open sourced it, which was a major decision. So yeah, basically stuff here.
Как мы все знаем, интернет был создан как военная система. Был создан ряд экспериментальных систем и открытая линия между ними. Позднее эта открытая линия была преобразована в TCP/IP. Это было конструкторское решение, не необходимость. Система оставалась академически кодовой до тех пор, пока Тим Бернерс-Ли не сделал нечто совершенно неожиданное. Он создал созданную паутину, он не запатентовал, а открыл свободный доступ к HTML. Это был поступок колоссальных масштабов.
So now I'm just going to list a few titles that I'm doing at the moment so that you take me a bit seriously. I was part of the Internet of Things expert group. I'm currently coordinator of the Activity Chain Societal of the IRC, the European Research Cluster on Internet of Things. Europe is investing a lot of money in this Internet of Things cluster and projects. I was also stakeholder coordinator for IoTA, which was the largest IP integrated project in Europe, 18 million euros with Siemens and SAP and Hitachi and Fraunhofer, lots of universities. My job actually, it was interesting because it was not foreseen in the project. And as the project moved on, they realized they missed somebody to coordinate not only the stakeholders in the project, but also the stakeholders outside the project. And that's why they brought me in. And this is basically the role that I had for the past year and a half. Now I'm community manager of Sociotal.eu, which is a smart city project, which has just started in September, which is like a smaller project, a 5 million euro project with two pilot cities, Santander and Novi Sad in Serbia. And I'm the community manager for these cities, trying to build use cases and scenarios that include citizens. Because that is something that we tend to forget in smart city projects, that there are people sort of involved.
Сейчас я хотел бы перечислить некоторые из своих должностей, титулов, чтобы вы меня чуть более всерьез воспринимали. Я бывший член экспертной группы Евросоюза по интернету вещей, а также действующий координатор цепочки социальных работ IERC, Европейской исследовательской группы по интернету вещей. Европа вкладывает значительные суммы денег в развитие. Я также являюсь координатором участников IoTA. Это крупнейший интегрированный проект, в который вложено 18 миллионов евро, и который включает в себя много известных компаний. Это моя работа в качестве координатора очень интересная. Сначала не подозревали, что понадобится такой человек. Я координирую участников не только тех, которые принимают участие в самом проекте, но и участников со стороны. Я также являюсь общественным руководителем ресурса sociotal.eu, который занимается развитием проектов по смарт-городам. Это смарт Сантандер и в Испании, Новый Сад в Сербии. Мы занимаемся развитием проекта всесторонним, что очень интересно. И иногда люди, строя смарт-города, забывают о том, что в городах будут жить жители, люди.
But I was also involved from 2003, 2004, with the World Public Forum and friends in Russia. They're also here, Professor Arshinov and Vadim Chekletsov, who are building the Internet of Things.ru. And for 3 years ago and 5 years ago, we had 2 seminars here in Moscow. Also one, I think at Strelka, sort of like at, sort of that was, I think that was there. And so, of course, I don't speak Russian. I don't claim to know a lot about it, but there's some link there. And one of the experts pointed me at the Stalker from Tarkovsky that I read. Do you know Stalker? Okay, so keep Stalker in the back of your head as we go through this.
Начиная примерно с 2003 года я поддерживаю отношения и дружу с людьми из России, из Международного общественного форума. Несколько лет назад мы вместе с Вадимом Чеклецовым организовали семинары. Стрелки, да, как это называется. Один из экспертов посоветовал мне прочитать книгу, на основании которой был снят фильм «Сталкер» Тарковским. Пожалуйста, все вы, наверное, знаете «Сталкер», этот фильм, и, пожалуйста, имейте в виду его, не забывайте до конца лекции.
Yeah, so this is this kind of this picture that you can sort of find online, and so I thought let's get that one. So what is the Internet of Things? So the Internet of Things is the seamless flow coming from the body area network, home area network, wide area network, very wide area network. So basically, it's the data coming from my body. As I go home, I sync that data in my smart meter, which is sort of in home. And then I go into my car or my bike, and then all this data is sort of synced in the bike or in the car. And then I go and talk to the city, and the city is also sort of smart. That's basically the idea, the Google car. So that's exactly what Google is doing. So you have the body area network, the home area network, the wide area network, and the very wide area network. And basically you have gateways. And the idea is to link up these gateways. Now why? Because we, people, citizens, end users, in the end are going to have to pay for this. Machines still don't have money. They have Bitcoin, but they cannot sort of like, and it's going to be a lot more than Bitcoin, but still, we are paying. So we have to pay for this sort of line. And we only are going to do that if somebody, some trusted party, is going to offer me all the data coming from that. So look at what Google is doing. Google has a Google Glass and a smart contact lens. So that's the gateway to the body. All the data coming from the body goes to a Google service. Then you go home. Google had the Google Power Meter, but that did not sell, so they bought Nest for 3.2 billion euro. So now they have 2 ways to the body, the glasses and the lens. They have 2 ways into the home, the Power Meter and the Nest. And they have the Google car, the self-driving car, but they're also selling all the data that they get from the car to the other car manufacturers so that they get an open line in the automotive. And then you want to go to the very wide area network, which is the city. So everybody's trying to get their hands on a city. Whoever gets their hands on a city basically can work back to the car, the home, the smart meter, and the body. So this is why all these big companies, IBM, Cisco, is going to the cities, also to Moscow, offering them city dashboards. Once you buy them, you will never get out of them. You will keep paying them for the rest of your life because they will mesh the raw data with their formats, which is basically a business model, but it's okay what they do, but you have to know about it.
Интернет вещей — это беспрепятственный поток между так называемыми БАН, ЛАН. БАН — это сеть в области нашего тела, ЛАН — сеть в домашнем окружении, ВАН — сеть, покрывающая какой-то более обширный район, и ВИ-ВАН — это сеть, охватывающая целые города. Что в данный момент делает Google? Google охватывает практически все эти сферы. Он выпустил очки Google Glass, смарт-контактные линзы. Это относится к области тела. Дальше к домашней обстановке относятся продукты Google Power Meter и Nest, Google Car, самоуправляемый автомобиль. В конечном счете необходимо, чтобы сбор данных выходил и соединялся в единую сеть. Тот, кто будет координировать и контролировать весь этот процесс, тому конечные пользователи будут платить деньги. Возможно, произойдет так, что платить придется очень долгое время одному и тому же провайдеру.
Again, I've got nothing against Google. I mean, it's all fine. It's just that what we are building and what is happening is an infrastructure, and we can see this. We can see what is happening. That's important. I had a discussion with Vint Cerf on Internet of Things, and we got into a discussion and basically saying, well, what is Google going to do in an Internet of Things? Nobody's going to type something in a screen in order to find something. So people are going to put objects to other objects and get data or information from it. So he said, well, I wrote about that with Bob Kahn in 1988, and they wrote this text. It's a very nice text. It's online, you can find it. And basically, they already talk about no bots in 1988. They have already made the idea of data not only embodied as a document, but as an object, as something that can be transported and moved around. So this already was thought up in '88. Basically, we cannot think maybe that there's a huge amount of agency in what people are doing over the past 20 years, but I would say that this is a very strong strategy. So it's been calculated.
Я ничего не имею против Гугла. В недавней дискуссии с Винтом Серфом, которую мы вели по интернету, мы обсуждали то, что делает Google. То есть вскоре нам не придется что-то впечатывать, мы сможем получать информацию, просто располагая где-то предметы. Винт Серф рассказал мне о том, что уже в 1988 году они писали на эту тему с Бобом Каном. Это очень интересный материал, его можно найти в интернете. То есть уже настолько давно стратегия зарождалась и приняла развитие в последние 30 лет.
So basically, that definition about research will also be undertaken to develop a no-bot which understands organizational structure and documents associated with it. This is basically the new politics. So it's the new system, it's the new platform. And as you can see, it's a definition of Google itself. Yes.
Высказывание, фраза из этой статьи, исследование будет проведено, чтобы разработать программу робота, которая понимает организационную структуру и документацию, связанную с ней. Очень интересное высказывание, оно означает, что необходимо разработать новую систему политики и новую платформу. Это определение самого Гугла.
So it basically also shows that it's these type of companies that will be effectively the new power. And I think democracy is really getting irrelevant everywhere. We also, my friends, we no longer talk to politicians. They don't understand it. We also don't talk to civil servants, some civil servants, because some civil servants understand it. And most people are just thinking that, okay, things will go on. We will live another 10 years, 15 years. But I don't think so. So the last Chinese government had, out of 11 top politicians, 9 engineers. Google has 9 out of 10 people at Google are engineers, 90%. That's the ratio, and that is what is at the moment building these organizational structures, not as an organizational structure next to the organizational structures that we know, but as the new organizational structure that will take over all these organizational structures.
Само это определение показывает, что компании такого типа будут новой формой организации сообщества. Демократия в старом понимании этого слова теперь неуместна. Я и мои друзья уже перестали разговаривать с политиками, потому что мы поняли, что это бесполезно. Также бесполезно разговаривать со многими госслужащими, чиновниками. В китайском правительстве последнего состава 9 политиков высшего ранга из 11 являются инженерами. Практически такое же соотношение мы наблюдаем в Гугле. 90% работников Гугла инженеры. Благодаря этому можно выстроить новую архитектурную структуру. Это будет не дополнительная архитектурная структура к тем, которые уже имеются, а совершенно новая.
So of course we all know Pastovsky and the engineers of the soul, sort of the lyriki and the physiki, this was done in the 30s, and of course in a very violent and tough way, but we need to do it again now. So we have to have a new pact between the writers and the engineers, between the philosophers and the physicists, to not only understand this new structure, but to build it.
Все слышали, конечно, про разделение на лириков и физиков. Это происходило в 30-е годы. Нам необходимо по-новому это сделать. В современной действительности это означает, что нам необходимы новые пакты между строителями и платформами между физиками и философами.
Yes. Sort of concretely also, it's about a lot of people building apps now and platforms, and that is also. So why is this all going so fast? So this Internet of Things is coming from two directions. It's coming from logistics and RFID. The barcode is from 1974. There's a barcode on that bottle. If you would have said in 1974, it's going to be a barcode on everything, people would have said, I'm not so sure. But now we have barcodes everywhere. And we have it because the industry decided not to compete on barcodes. Sony doesn't have its own barcode. Philips doesn't have its own barcode. They said, okay, we'll share some data, turn this into a barcode across the planet. And this actually worked. So they have the barcode working. And this barcode then brought the idea that you could actually build RFID, so that the barcode is only identifying 1,000 bottles with that same barcode. What if we can uniquely identify that bottle? We need an RFID tag to do that. Was this possible in the 90s? No, because in the 90s, the whole debate was about database storage. The whole debate was about, can we store data in a database? Yes, we can, but it's very expensive. So we didn't do it.
Интернет вещей базируется на двух опорах: логистике и интернете. С 1974 года был введен штрих-код. Эта система, если бы в 1974 году вам сказали или кому-то сказали, что система просуществует очень долгое время, возможно, человек бы в этом усомнился. Но это получилось, причем была принята единая система штрих-кодовая. Отдельные компании не стали создавать отдельную штрих-кодовую систему. Эта система стала универсальной. В данный момент штрих-коды заменяются RFID метками. В 90-х годах все сводилось... Проблема заключалась в том, что было невозможно хранить продолжительное время крупные базы данных.
So around 2000, we have this shift. So before 2000, the idea of an Internet of Things cannot happen because we cannot store all the data in the cloud. The word is not yet there. So the idea that we can have all this data actually somehow stored will not happen. So you see how fast everything has been going. So around 2000, we have this dramatic downfall. Now, nobody is thinking about the cost of shared data storage when they start up. Actually, I think it's gone. A thing like a terabyte was like $3,000, $30,000, like 3,000, and now it's like 30 cents or something like that. And this will mean that barcodes, QR codes, U-codes, RFID, and near-field communication, which is two-way RFID. I put my phone to a package of coffee or to the green bottle, and there is an NFC tag on the bottle, which triggers a URL on my phone. My phone is always on, so it just goes and collects a file that's associated with that tag, so I can get information about the bottle in real time. Near-field communication. It's already on a lot of phones, and it's going to come. So all this will play a role in this Internet of Things, where data will be stored locally. So Internet of Things does not mean that all the data will go to the cloud all the time in real time. It also means that some data will stay locally and will only connect with some server in 1 hour or so. Korea is at the forefront of this with NFC devices. They have NFC rice cookers. They have NFC little sort of click-ons that you put on your fridge that collect data and then send that in an hour or so. So this is one part of Internet of Things, coming from logistics. Where are things? The barcode, U-codes, RFID.
Примерно в 2000 году произошел сдвиг. До 2000 года идея развития интернет-вещей была невозможна из-за высокой стоимости хранения баз данных. После 2000 года стоимость значительно снизилась, а затем снизилась до того уровня, что даже стартап-компаниям стало позволительно платить за хранение данных. Можно предположить, что система штрих-кодов, QR-кодов, U-кодов, RFID, системы коммуникации ближнего поля, все они останутся. Если у нас будет повсюду интернет вещей, это не будет означать, что все другие системы исчезнут. Они на локальном уровне тоже будут использоваться.
Yeah, sort of. This is how I sort of envisage the infrastructure as we build it. Sort of, you know that there's a big structure behind it, but it has still a lot of variety that's there. So the internet itself was never built for personal use. Again, coming from military system, email, it was all flukes. It was never intended that now we ordinary people, simple people like me, would have the possibility to hook on to this World Wide Web and build networks sort of like on my own. This was never intended. So the amount of traffic on it is already huge, and people are beginning to think that maybe this structure, this IP-based internet protocol, unique addresses-based structure, is not going to hold when the Internet of Things is going to, maybe double, quadruple, maybe even quadruple the amount of data and traffic sort of that is going to run on it. IPv4 is gone because the people thought of the architecture in the 80s. They thought 4 billion computers is enough for the world. But they thought about desktop. They had in the 80s, they had big computers. So they simply could not think, they could not believe that the world would have a need for more than 4 billion of these big devices. Now we have smartphones, and there's a lot of IP, internet protocol connectivity running on devices. They could not foresee that. So now we move to IPv6. IPv6 means, according to some, more internet addresses in a square meter of sand than sand. Than sand, basically. So it's an enormous amount of URLs. And this means that IPv6 and 6LoWPAN, which is the wireless connecting sort of protocol, will basically be in everything. So this will be every object with a little bit of software will have a unique IP addressability. Toothbrushes, coffee machines, small, robots, whatever. Sort of smart devices.
Интернет никогда не предназначался для личного использования. И создатели, разработчики протокола IPv4 в 80-х годах даже представить себе не могли, что когда-то людям понадобится гораздо больше компьютеров и будет использоваться гораздо больше приспособлений. Поэтому думали, что этого будет достаточно. Сегодня IPv4 уже отходит в прошлое. Ему на смену пришел IPv6 и 6LoWPAN. протокол для беспроводного соединения. Вскоре они будут в любом устройстве, в котором присутствует минимальное количество программного обеспечения. Таким образом, IP-адрес будет в любом предмете типа зубной щетки, кофемашины, роботах и так далее.
So this is basically for the programmers here, that we have this Internet of Things, but there's also something called Web of Things, which basically wants to make programming objects as easy, but at least as easy as programming websites. And that's this protocol called co-op. So co-op is a constrained protocol to work directly on devices. So if you want to work and start programming objects in terms of applications and web services, look into these two protocols, but especially co-op. So we see this Internet of Things is coming from two sides. Well, maybe even more, but at least sort of. So it's coming from this demand to individuate objects, to make every object on the planet uniquely identifiable. When I first thought about that, like around 2000, when I first went into these conferences, I went a bit mad for a few years. I was thinking every object, like every piece of having a unique identifier. Just think about it for a while, but this is what's happening, and we're doing that. So individuating all objects, plus bringing more and more objects into a networked environment. So not only websites, but also bottles and coffee machines and thermostats and cars and basically everything. So this is what is happening now. And I think we all feel the huge acceleration. So it's every day it's more. And you see that it cannot be stopped. Because these two trends, they fuel each other. So people talk about acceleration in acceleration. And once this happens, it's like there is no stopping. So the question is, can we steer it?
У нас появится так называемая паутина вещей, и веб-разработчикам, может быть, кто-то из вас захочет им стать, будет возможно программировать объекты при помощи простого набора инструментов с той же легкостью, с которой они программируют веб-сайты. Если вам интересно, вы можете посмотреть информацию по протоколу co-op, который сыграет большую роль в этом. Интернет вещей придет к нам с двух направлений. Первое — это идея о идентификации каждого конкретного объекта. Когда я впервые задумался об этом много лет назад, мне было сложно представить, что это будет возможно. Но это то, что сейчас уже происходит. Второе направление — это соединение большего и большего количества единиц информации. А в качестве единиц информации мы можем рассматривать и предметы в сети сетей. Процесс этот невозможно остановить, он развивается очень быстро. Это ускорение в ускорении. Встает вопрос, можем ли мы взять этот процесс под контроль?
So I think yes, we can. Sort of because at the moment this is going global, and this is only steered by a few companies basically. And if we are not careful, these new companies, these few companies, will basically take over the way we look at the world. If you're fine with that, you're fine with that. But if you're not fine with that, I think then we should think about what are possibilities to act. I think that local regions should determine their own pace. People, civilizations should be able to find their own balance between this Internet of Things and the real world. Again, it cannot be stopped, but sort of can it be handled? Can it be steered? Yeah.
Я считаю, что управлять этим процессом можно. Если мы не будем принимать никаких действий, то контроль возьмет в свои руки пара компаний, ведущих компаний в этой сфере. Если вас это устраивает, вы можете с этим смириться. Если нет, тогда нужно задуматься о том, что мы можем предпринять в этом отношении. Я считаю, что на локальном уровне каждое сообщество должно задуматься о том, что оно может предпринять и каким образом может принимать участие в управлении этим процессом.
Because at the moment it's really pushed by one worldview, and not only one worldview, just one particular kind of intelligence, I would say, basically. And it needs competition, and it needs sort of also more fight, and it needs more dialogue sort of in between. So if we have competing visions, then we can have sort of middleware or dialogue in between sort of as discussion, and that's sort of, I think, what we need. Now, I also think that the agency at this moment is on device level. It's basically very simple Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was very, very, very clever. And he saw that the agency lies in the device. Once you have the device, you control what goes in, you control what goes out. And when you're an Apple user, you're also controlled as to which telco you're using, because Apple decides which telcos they work with or not. So this is the device. That's your agency. You control what goes in, you control what goes out, and you actually control who it talks to. When he came back to Apple, the first thing Steve Jobs did when he came back to Apple was closing down the Foresight Group. So Apple, like any other big company at that time, had a Foresight Group. And this Foresight Group was looking 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead. And the first thing he did was he closed that group down, and he said, research will be done in the crucible of development. The researchers go to work with the product developers. They have to be very close to what's happening on the ground. They cannot be there in their room thinking of things, so predictions of 10 to 20 years, because most of these things have not really happened. I had a friend then working in that division, Steve Sisler. Of course, he was broken about it, that his group was being closed. But very shortly afterwards, he understood it, he got it, and he went to work with the product developers, and we know what happened since then. Since Steve Jobs came back to Apple, he sort of the whole thing, turned off. But no.
Действующая сила в данный момент находится на уровне устройств. Стив Джобс был очень умным человеком. В Apple все построено по такому принципу. Сила находится на уровне устройства, а мы контролируем все, что есть на входе, все, что есть на выходе. Когда Стив Джобс вернулся в Apple, первым делом он закрыл Foresight Group, это группа по прогнозированию на будущее, и сказал, исследования должны проводиться в горниле развития. Мой друг, который там работал, Стив Сислер, в первый момент был шокирован, но потом согласился с этим высказыванием.
So that's, I believe, the key to steering this Internet of Things. And this is a very dangerous plan. That's why we have to keep Stalker in mind, because it's very, very dangerous. But I really believe it's the only way out. But that's just something for us to discuss, of course. So we hard code identity management, the passport, into an Internet of Things device. We have a clean slate approach. We can actually rethink IP if we want to. We can have really new ideas thinking about security. At the moment, I'm in a lot of projects, and security and privacy researchers, they take up 50% of basically all the budgets. I think it's too much. Also because if we are honest, for example, in Holland, we have the MyFair card. It's totally open, it's broken, it's hacked. And millions of people drive with that card and go do public transport with that card every day. Nobody really cares. It's a trade-off. So there are a lot of these trade-offs. We cannot go to securing every item in an Internet of Things, because we will get intranets of things and not an Internet of Things. Such a device is basically a device like that. So that's the device. It's your passport. It talks to only one platform, and it talks to one app store. It talks to a Russian platform, or an EU-Russian platform, or a BRIC platform, and it talks to an app store. It acts as a controller, so you can assign your fridge and all the other objects that you want to assign it to. And of course, it's quite dangerous, because we hard code identity management into a device. It's one possibility.
Я полагаю, что в этом заключается ключ к управлению интернетом вещей. Это жесткое кодирование системы управления идентификационной информацией, паспортом. А также подход к безопасности и защите. Каждое устройство может выбирать собственный подход. Пример здесь можно привести с MyFair Card. Эта карточка полностью открыта, полностью взломана. Тем не менее, в Голландии очень многие люди ей пользуются. Отдельное устройство действует как контроллер и может закреплять за собой какие-то предметы. Конечно, это очень опасно.
This device will basically talk to a single set of principles in a platform. And it can even be a kind of total clean slate, so that you think, okay, we're going to move away from the IP-based infrastructure. We're going to think up a whole new way of addressing items, or cars have a registration system. We're going to base a whole new registration system on a registration system of cars and assign objects to cars, because people mostly have things like that. It's basically, there's a whole lot of numbering schemes out there that you can even think. Or you can stay IP-based, but you still build your own platform. So ideally, in a service store, people manage their taxes. And I've been sort of having this idea for a while, discussing it with lots of people. And actually, I've been learning that, for example, in the UK, but also actually in Europe, a lot of these e-management schemes have already been basically thought up. So the logical move for this passport, which is now a piece of paper with a chip, and the chip is doing nothing in the paper, to move to a chip with a screen is a logical one. But I would like to be also helping to build that. So I think I would like to think out the architecture of that. So we have to think out the architecture of that. And of course, it's an open source project.
Устройство общается только с одним набором принципов платформы, то есть с теми же самыми, это те же самые архитектурные принципы. Может основана быть эта система на IP, но с другой стороны мы можем выстроить и совершенно новые архитектуры. В сервис Store человек сможет решать массу вопросов, связанных с налогами, со здоровьем и так далее. В идеале это должен быть открытый источник. Система паспортов на данный момент это паспорт с чипом. Дальше будет развиваться. Это будут чипы на экране. Это будет другой тип чипов.
So basically, it can be some identifier in a screen. Now, of course, this is very dangerous, and this can go towards total control matrix on the one hand, right? It can also go to total transparency on the other hand. This will also expose all the corruption. This will also expose everything that is going on in the entire system. So it goes two ways. This goes towards this notion of trust or this notion of control. All I'm thinking is that what is happening now is quite inevitable, and what we all will have to think up is a way to keep some agency in this space. Having that agency means that a plan like this can only be done with a lot of stakeholders, with a lot of people. It cannot not be done by 5 people only. It can also not be done by only one faction of people. Sort of, it has to be done with a lot of people.
Professor, is it affordable for new technologies to build a new passport? For example, when you go to the shop and the system registers your entrance.
We can skip that. You have to speak up, I think.
Yes. Have you understood the question?
Yes, if it's affordable. Yes.
We'll do it later.
Yes. We'll do it after the talk because we'll pick it up. Yes. We'll come back to this question. Yeah. Okay. Oh, do you think I'm now?
Okay, I'm supposed to translate what you said before the question, right? Развитие может идти в двух направлениях. С одной стороны, оно может привести к тотальному контролю, с другой стороны, к полной прозрачности. Нам необходимо принимать в этом активное участие, четко прослеживать, где находится действующая сила, и участвовать в этом процессе должно как можно больше людей. С участием 5 человек ничего не получится.
So it gives back agency on a platform level and allows a lot of openness and enthusiasm on the level of young people and web developers. I'm a lot in China, and in China there's again there was an Internet of Things. There was an RFID white paper in 2005 with 17 ministries. Very integrated thinking on Internet of Things. Wen Jiabao, the Chinese prime minister, mentioned Internet of Things, and then 400 companies moved to Wuxi. There are now 1,000. They have these ideas about these platforms, but if you do not have an openness in content or in ideas, will the younger generation, that I'm very happy to see here, will they be able to put their stuff on it? Will they be able to write applications? Will they be able to do basically whatever they want on that platform? Will they be able to make services, niche services for people that they identify on the fly very quickly? If you do not have that, then it will also not work. So if this idea of this platform, which is about, yes, a lot of control on the infrastructure, if that's not matched with openness in the application and the services, then it will not work, of course. So this is very important, that if we build such an architecture, we need to have the right balance between where do we want the control. Well, we want control on the infrastructure. We don't want 10,000 RFID standards. We don't want 1,500 different implementations of smart cities. We just want 1 or 2 implementation of smart city architectures. That's fine. But then we want 1,000 or whatever types of new applications and services possible for people to build on.
Данный план возвращает действующую силу назад на уровень платформы, на платформный уровень. Еще в 2005 году в Китае интернет вещей обсуждался на очень высоком уровне с участием 17 министерств, и было вложено очень много средств. Необходимо, чтобы обеспечивалась уверенная открытость на уровне контента и приложений. Если этого не будет, тогда более молодым поколением, я очень рад видеть сегодня здесь столько молодых людей, будет ли интересно молодым людям продолжать и развивать этот процесс, если у них не будет возможности создавать свои собственные приложения, создавать свои собственные социальные сети. Очень важно, чтобы был четкий баланс между управлением и контролем и обеспечением достаточного количества открытости. Если это не будет работать, если этого не будет, то система работать не будет.
So, also this platform, of course, if you build a new architecture, we all know what's going on at the moment, that there's a lot of spying going on the architecture, not only the NSA, but basically every country is involved in piggybacking or trying to so if you have a new architecture, there's also new ideas of security. There's also new ideas of what data is, what information is, what knowledge is in the system. We also believe that biotechnology and nanotechnology, which are the new, very close already, that they will actually be eaten up by Internet of Things. So Internet of Things is the highway, and nanotechnology will simply make components smaller, and biotechnology will also inspire the concepts, but will also make the bio patches that people put on their bodies to get more biologically inspired, and the biotechnology and nano will be in this whole flow of connectivity.
Если мы выстроим новую архитектуру, у нас будут новые представления о безопасности и новые представления даже о том, что такое данные. Биотехнологии и нанотехнологии будут поглощены системой интернета вещей, то есть они станут составной частью. У нас будут биотехнологические пластыри, которые мы будем с различными целями наклеивать на тело. Все будет объединено в беспрепятственный единый поток.
So yes, this is what I think what it is. So it took me personally about 15 years to get to to this more positive view. So the first 3 years, I was really upset when I understood that this was going to happen. All this connectivity. Then the first instinct I had with friends was, okay, let's try to hack it, because we cannot have this kind of world, which is this full matrix world. Then the second thing we found was that we cannot hack it, because it's everywhere. So we have to ride it. We have to live with it. We have to see if we somehow can take it over. If we can find some agency in this huge and fast process, in order to keep our own pace, to keep our own road sort of in this. So now, after 15 years, took me 15 years, I really believe this now. So maybe I've gone over to the dark side, I don't know. But this is sort of what I believe. If we have this kind of infrastructure, it's going to give me very good feedback on my physical and mental health. In terms of mental health, there's now more people at home in England with mental problems than with physical problems. Depression, sort of obsessive compulsive disorder, all these things. So we think that if people actually start wearing more devices and share their moods, we could actually maybe get sort of people get get to them faster before it gets really serious, things like that. This Internet of Things also means the best the best resource allocation on goods. So already when we go out and find a price for something, we go online and find a good price, and we sort of we see there and there and there. If that could be automated, if sort of a lot of devices could sort of price themselves, and sort of this can happen, this is happening. There's a lot of nonsense going on in the world based on ego, people making decisions because they slept badly or because they had too much to drink the night before. We need to get rid of these types of decisions of people. They should no longer be in the decision-making process of what is actually going on in the world. We need a lot more real-time information, real-time data, giving us the possibility to make informed decisions. And then we need a much better sort of road against climate change, which I think is also very much possible with this Internet of Things, because we leak 50% of our water, or 40 to 50%, and we waste 40 to 50% of our food, which is all ridiculous. So all these sort of monitoring systems could actually make that better. So that's what I think now, after a long trajectory, and I think we should build it. Yeah.
Я работаю в этой сфере вот уже 15 лет. С самые первые годы мои настроения были достаточно пессимистическими. Было сложно представить себе, что все будет развиваться именно так. Но по прошествии времени я понял, что процесс этот неизбежный. Возможно, я перешел на сторону темных сил. И в данный момент я верю, что если мы построим такую инфраструктуру, нам станет проще контролировать состояние собственного организма и собственного тела. Мы сможем при помощи массы различных устройств лучше понимать нужды собственного организма. Мы также сможем лучше находить источники получения того, что нам необходимо. Если у нас будет достаточное количество открытой информации, нужной нам. К сожалению, в данный момент творится в мире много различных, происходит много безумных событий. Люди, решения по поводу этих событий принимают люди. Часто это человек, допустим, который плохо спал ночью или который накануне вечером выпивал и плохо себя чувствует. Нам необходимо уйти от этого и необходимо создать систему, в которой нам будет предоставлено гораздо больше информации в режиме реального времени. Я верю, что если мы сможем это построить, перейдем к лучшей жизни.
Yes, questions. Yes, I think we have a microphone, maybe, or I think you have to stand up and.
Вопрос про платформы для интернета вещей. Какие вообще, что это такое платформа для интернета вещей? Какие у них функции? И на круглом столе говорили о том, что у кого будет эта платформа, тот будет иметь определенную независимость в мире будущего интернета вещей. Соответственно, что это такое, какие у них функции и что думает по этому поводу, что вы думаете по этому поводу? Будут это этими платформами владеть какие-то компании или, возможно, какая-то форма открытого продукта, когда это является общественной собственностью, платформа интернета вещей?
Yes. Well, about the first questions, we have to. I mean, we have to sit together and with more people that are interested and work out a project and make a project definition out of the requirements for a platform. This European project I was in, IOTA, built an architectural reference model for Internet of Things, which was a very high abstract reference model from which you could derive real architectures for specific domains. And what we talk about when we talk about a platform like this is a platform like they're out there, like the old Patch Bay that turned Xively and ThingWorks and sort of all the Cisco platforms and basically huge aggregators that sort of collect data and then send data sort of somewhere. And when we talk about a platform for, let's say, 140 million people, or a platform for 500 million people, we have to discuss how such a platform would look like or work. I would think that it would be good if such a platform would be in the hands of an organization, like a public organization, that would host sort of the backbone of the architecture, and that companies could lease services, or could say, I want to provide this service, and this is all, then this would be possible. But I would like the backbone of the platform to be public. I don't know how this would work out in different countries, but
Чтобы ответить на этот вопрос, на первый вопрос, необходимо всем заинтересованным людям сесть вместе и подумать, как разработать такую платформу. Некоторые наработки уже существуют. Существует архитектурная ссылочная структура, на которых можно основывать платформу. Как эта платформа будет выглядеть для сообщества в 140 миллионов человек или в 500 миллионов человек, пока неизвестно. По моим представлениям, должна существовать какая-то общественная организация, и скелет, точнее мозг, спинной мозг, то есть позвоночник этой платформы, по моим представлениям, должен быть в руках общественной какой-то организации, которая предоставляла бы услуги.
Что такое платформа? Какие ее функции?
And what is the platform and what are the functions of the platform?
Yeah. But this has to be decided. Sort of this we cannot. So we have to decide that what the functions are. The first thing we have to decide is, do we want such a plan? And the platform is sort of is a loose term for whatever you want to collect and whatever you want to get out of there. That's sort of you need to decide that for yourself. You can think about a neighborhood platform, like every neighborhood will have a neighborhood server. And you collect all the data that from all the people and all the things that are happening in that neighborhood, and you anonymize all the data, and you even put sensors in the beds and see if people slept badly, and then if 5 people have slept badly, you can say or you let that know in the sort of the screens on a bus stop, or you port that to somebody's personal device. Then you can come forward and say, well, I slept badly. I want more data. I want more advice from you, or more things like that. But sort of all these things are possible. But you have to decide.
Нам предстоит решить, что это будет, предстоит решить, каковы будут функции платформы. Платформа — это очень обширное понятие, и нужно продумать, что в него будет входить. Можно создать, допустим, районные платформы по отдельным районам и собирать какие-то данные из этого конкретного местоположения. Можно расположить датчики в кровати, и они будут измерять, хорошо ли вы спали в эту ночь или плохо. Необходимо принять решение по поводу того, что это будет.
Можно ли сказать, что в вашем контексте платформа — это синтез концепции, архитектуры, ну и, скажем, географической структуры? Концепции.
Architecture.
Архитектуры и структуры. Maybe topology, not geography,
Yes?
maybe topology.
Yes?
На самом деле, хотелось бы сказать, что теория или идея интернета вещей в значительной степени зависит от формирования потребностей, точнее развития потребностей человека в каких-то новых сервисах. То есть это, по сути дела, раскручивание рынка потребления. Сейчас мы наблюдаем кризис, то есть потребление как раз сокращается. В связи с этим, какое ваше видение, как кризис может повлиять на развитие идеологии интернета вещей? И второй вопрос, какие направления из интернета вещей вы считаете будут приоритетны или стартуют раньше других, или будут активнее внедряться, чем другие? Я имею в виду ЖКХ, медицина, транспорт, ну, там много различных направлений. Спасибо.
Both are very good questions. So the first question is very important because up until now, indeed, citizens are not asking for an Internet of Things. There's no demand. In basically all the countries, still now, if you ask people about it, they don't know about it, and they want maybe, they have no clue to what they want. So the demand is not there. And this is because this Internet of Things is driven purely from technology. It's driven purely from the back end. It's driven from the factories. It's driven from logistics, smart manufacturing, all of that. Now, it needs to go into the home. And it needs to go into becoming something that people actually want. But as of yet, there is very little that people would actually go and look for and say, this is a good use case, this is really good. It's all about it's about effectiveness. It's still about efficiency and effectiveness. So it does not really matter, I believe, that there's no demand yet, because it will go on anyway. It will be pushed through all the openings sort of that are there. And the fact that there's a crisis, it may also lead to particular solutions. For example, sharing. People are sharing cars in Europe and in America. 5 years ago, nobody would have believed that. But now people are sharing cars. People are sharing tools in the neighborhood, power drills. If you can monitor it, you know when it breaks down. So all these things are, so sharing can also be in part of Internet of Things type scenarios. So that's the first, I think.
На самом деле спроса на интернет вещей до сих пор не существует. Интернет вещей идет со стороны компаний, со стороны логистики. Люди пока даже многие люди не знают о том, что такое интернет вещей. Но это не станет помехой на пути его развития, потому что процесс идет. Что касается кризиса, в данный момент, возможно, это даже сыграет на руку. Люди начали совместно использовать, например, газ. Извините, просто совсем не поняла. Люди в данный момент используют инструменты совместно. Делятся. this is it.
Can I ask you about the educational system? You know that modern educational system is outdated. You go into, well, you go to the lecture hall and you see approximately that you saw 50 years ago. And the modern solutions in educational data mining area and my own project, for example, I lead one startup in this area. It's a social network and educational data mining system that tries to predict your motivation and tries to change the content of course in your further educational path. And I ask you about the MOOC trend. You know what it means. About the Coursera and their efforts. Is it effective to provide the video content or to change the way of content to the text, or maybe some adaptive?
I think this goes directly into this feedback on physical and mental health. So there's a startup on basically monitoring your mood, or trying to monitoring how the way that you sort of respond to certain stimuli, and then maybe change that dynamically as it goes on. So it takes the learning process very, very seriously. And yes, we have to and we are rethinking about using these tools in the educational process. And again, we need a balance. There's a lot of good in the old system. There's a lot of knowledge in the old system that cannot go away. But but there's also a lot of new demand by young people raised with all these tools, being raised with more tools that want to have this knowledge in a different way. So there's got to be a bridge.
Yes, and the trend, because I see the course and Coursera, big data in education, and by Ryan Baker.
Yeah. Well, actually, you want to say a little bit about the conference that's coming up? Because we have a conference coming up in May about...
Hello, dear friends. Actually, we're going to organize a conference in Moscow State University at the Faculty of Philosophy with Roba Van Kranenburga that will deal with game-based learning, digital game-based learning, and also we'll discuss these questions. So we invite everyone who is interested. Welcome. In May, 22 to 23 of May.
Yeah, so game on. So actually, it's quite interesting that you raised this question, and you see that it's really that things are really happening here. Also, especially on that, because if we cannot bring the enthusiasm of this type of learning mixed with the old types of learning, then we lose. We lose out, and we don't want to lose also the good things in the old system.
I think the diversity is also important, because when you're already always in online system, it's pretty boring. And I think the trend to to pull out people on the offline. For example, Eat With startup. It's a social network, but it's a offline social network with a dinner.
Yes.
With friends.
Yes, and really, again, this is really important. I mean, personally, deep down inside, if I would have a red stop button, I would push the red stop button now, right? Because it's going way too fast. But we cannot. So what I have also is a lot of friends who really don't like this. Because basically, also, I don't like it either. Well, I like it, but it takes me. I need to have energy. It takes me energy to like it. But then I will like it. But I have a lot of friends, also a lot of friends in philosophy, and a lot of friends in humanities, who move away from this. But there's no escaping. There is no more hiding place. we cannot find a hiding place in the world anymore to hide from this. This is coming. So we must, as the humanities and philosophy, be engaged very, very strongly with the hard sciences immediately, and even come up with like very dangerous schemes like this idea of identity management in the system and things like that. But I think that in the long run, or the mid sort of term, this will bring us a kind of agency and balance in this system, because otherwise we will be sucked in the matrix like that. So then we don't want that.
Символом первой промышленной революции стала паровая машина, второй конвейер, третий компьютер. Есть ли устройство, которое вы могли бы назвать символом четвертой промышленной революции? Industry 4.
First industrial revolution, second and third, first revolution, is there a symbol? Is there something that we would call a symbol of the fourth industrial revolution?
Yeah, that's very good. We have to think about that. Sort of, the thermostat. Yes, a good thing. Yes, the thermostat. The nest, right? Yes, the thermostat. Yeah, as the object that nobody thought about, nobody thinks about, and all of a sudden it becomes this marker of boom. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes, the thermostat. You have to write about that.
Yes, I will.
Я согласен полностью с тем, что нужно отдавать свои данные бизнесу. То есть всю свою частную жизнь я готов отдать, потому что бизнесу мне нужно что-то продать. Он, когда знает про меня все, он удовлетворяет мои потребности в сервисах и в продуктах. Но сейчас у нас государство очень заинтересовано, чтобы поучаствовать в Big Data, и она всеми способами стремится эти данные забрать. При этом я никакого инструмента по управлению государством не получаю, зато оно получает инструменты для управления мной. Вот нет ли здесь опасности конкретно?
Yes, and sort of this architecture and this plan sort of that I'm proposing and that we are proposing, there's a lot of activists also involved. So there's a lot of people involved, and in 1890 in Russia there was the Beseda group, the nobility, the princes, they came together and they realized that something has to be done. They made the same analysis as Lenin, they made the same analysis as the anarchists, but they could not talk to each other because they had no internet. So I think this is what is happening now. I think we find that a lot of people are realizing that the dichotomy is no longer between bad states or bad companies or and then some good citizens. This is a new sort of field where new people will be playing, and they will come from companies, they will come from governments, and they will come from citizen groups, and they will come from coding groups. So this is basically, if we talk about these things, we also must realize that people here is already a kind of new elite, because you come here and you listen to these things and you think about these issues, this is already about potentially, I mean, the people here in 5 or 10 years' time will actually build this platform or build these companies. And you will also be involved as a stakeholder in that. So the people who are now in charge of these systems or governments or intelligence services or they are in the same position that people were in a position before the Industrial Revolution, sort of. So it's happening. But I agree completely that we cannot move into this space with these stakeholders. So if it is about if it's only about control, if it's only about trying to isolate data in order to gain some advantage, then it's not going to work. We also must, I think, be very open about the power of the network itself, and the power of this TCP/IP protocol is very, very, very strong. So if you isolate yourself in this new network, you simply are unseen. You don't exist. Now, who does not want to exist now? So isolating is no longer an option. You need to share. You need to be open, because otherwise you are invisible. And you don't want to be invisible. So I'm counting on the really strong aspects of sharing and collaborating that are in the protocols that have given us what we have now in the past 20 years with the browser, and that are always, since their conception, have favored transparency and openness. And so it is a bit of a gamble, I agree, but I'm willing to take it. But we also must be really honest and then say, okay, we have to build it. We have to have a stake in it. Basically, I think to me, all these current systems are quite obsolete, whatever they are at the moment, because they are all built with very old principles, everywhere in the world, all of them. So there's no real difference between any of them, I would say. So I think it's really, yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
Could I ask you about in spite of all advantages you enumerated, I think that we have very poor future in meaning that, what I mean, have you seen the film WALL-E? It's an animated film.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, and have you seen the humanity population and the big spaceship and with a lot of robotics which surround them? I think that with the new technologies we also have a problem that we build a very complex system, and after that we are trying to simplify it.
Yeah.
And I think that if we will go this way, it could be approximately the same like in the WALL-E movie. And I think the problem is how to change this way, because when you go with a GPS navigator, it helps you to go, but to drive the car, but on the other side, you don't keep the map in your mind. You don't develop your mind.
Yes, well, I think it's very easy to be negative about everything that's going on. I mean, the French philosopher Bernard Stiegler, he calls it the end of libido. Sort of according, well, of course he's French, but according to him, this whole digitalization, this whole removing ourselves of immediate interaction is death. It's the end of the species, sort of, and it's easy to think like that. This was also the reason why I actually got involved in all of this. I was in like 15 years ago, I was in this a room like this, and I just made a run across the lake, really in the woods, and I was sort of seeing King Arthur's sword coming from the lake, and it was And I go into the lecture room, and a guy comes on stage, and he says, in 10 years' time, you will have a Bluetooth ring, you will walk in the woods, you will point at a tree, a screen will pop up, and it will tell you about the tree. Now, that's when I thought, I don't want to live in that world, right? So that's why I thought, okay, I'm going to stay very close to the people who are developing this. So 15 years later, here I am, and I'm telling you, with like having set up a council with like 160 members, like the top experts on Internet of Things, being involved in the top conferences about it, not just to say how good I am, but just to say that this is how I really feel that I can say this. And I say, look, this is happening, and the screen will be there, and we cannot stop it. If we are very, very, very clever as a scientific community with an enormous amount of intelligence and impact, with realizing what is happening, can we have some agency, and can we find some way to steer it, to guide it, according to what we want? And I think that there's still a very, very small, but there is still this possibility. And so all I'm thinking is it's up to you to basically, well, this is very dramatic, but it's up to you to basically decide, like, the future of where Russia is going in 10 to 15 years. And so it's a very tough responsibility.
But I saw the lecture of Shimon Shaken on the TED conference, and he said that he was sick of the abstraction layer of this modern computers, and he can't tell their his students how the computer works, because he can't. There are a lot of information about the modern systems, and you can't fit it in the small course on the semester. And the generation of Linus Torvalds and, for example, Tannenbaum, they're very lucky, because they was grown in the time where computers were very small.
Дорогие, есть еще какие-то вопросы, дорогие коллеги? Тогда давайте поблагодарим Роба.